Hi, welcome back. In the previous session, we discussed about the types of failures that can happen and the types of recovery, crash recovery, version recovery, and roll forward recovery. Now, let's discuss how the backup procedure is and what happens when a disaster happens. So, at timestamp one, a backup is taken, and at timestamp two, a disaster happens. So you need a backup and then the logs that are captured between timestamp 1 and timestamp 2 in order to completely recover your data. These logs they capture all the changes that happen on database from time to time. So whenever a delete or update or insert happens on the database, and all these changes are captured to the logs. So you need a backup as well as logs to recover to a point in time. So let's say the timestamp in T1, the timestamp T1 here is Sunday at 11:30, and timestamp T2 is Wednesday when the disaster happens. So you need a backup that was taken on Sunday at T1 as well as the logs from Sunday T1 to Wednesday T2 to recover completely. So in DB2 there are two types of logging. One is circular logging and the other is archival logging. Circular logging is the default mode of logging, and it is enabled by default. And if you have only circular logging, you can take only offline backups, and you cannot recover to a point in time. So what is the difference between online backup and offline backup? So in an offline backup, the database is completely offline and nobody can connect to the database. So for a production database, which should run 24/7, normally online backups are considered. In order to have online backups, you need to set up archival logging, and to do that, you have to enable the parameter logarch meth1. So in circular logging, there are two types of logs, primary logs as well as secondary logs. Primary logs are allocated during the database activation when the first connection happens on the database, and secondary logs are allocated on demand. So there are, let's say there are four logs, and then once the first primary log becomes full, the second is allocated, the second is used, the third is used, and then once all the primary logs are full, the secondary logs are used. So this is all part of circular logging. So in archival logging, what happens is you have active logs or circular logs, and once the transactions are committed and returned to disk, they are moved to the archive location by DB2. So this archival logging is needed to take a online backup or to recover to a point in time. So let's see how many primary logs and how many secondary logs we have on the database and how to change it. So this is the command you would use to check the number of primary and secondary logs. We do a db2 get dbcfg for the database name. Here the database name is sample, and look for log prime. So the log primary is the parameter which indicates the number of primary logs on the database. Here we have 3 primary logs, and let's see how many secondary logs we have. So here we have 100 secondary logs. So as a DBA, there are a lot of scenarios when you have to increase this parameter. Let's say there is a transaction running on the database updating millions of records, and which is committing infrequently, and you have to increase this parameter to accommodate all those changes. So let me show you how you do that. db2 update dbcfg using log second 120 immediate. So you change the log second to 120 and now you have 120 secondary logs. Let us validate that. So here you go. The log second now shows 120 and now you have 120 secondary logs and 3 primary logs that are part of circular logging. And how do you check whether the archival logging is enabled or not? As discussed earlier, we have a parameter called logarg-meth1 and you can check for that. So this parameter is currently turned off, which means uh, the archival logging is not enabled and only circular logging is enabled, and you cannot take online backup, you cannot recover to point in time. Let's try and take a online backup db sample online. See, it throws an error saying that online backup is not allowed. And let me try and take a offline backup. The backup is successful and this is the timestamp of the backup. Since the database is very small, the backup was quick. And if you observe, the difference between the online and offline backup command is you just give the online clause for the online backup, and then for the offline backup, you don't give that. So that's the basic difference as to how you execute an online backup and offline backup. So in the next session, I'm going to discuss more about how to enable the archival logging and how to take online backups. Thank you.